Hello and welcome to another edition of Time About the Movies Flashback, and today we're flashing back to October 23rd, 1987. We got 4 movies to look at, including new films from director John Carpenter, films starring Cher and Dennis Quaid. We also have a movie that's trying to be the new Godfather, and a buddy action movie written by the creator of Law & Order starring Charlie Sheen and D.B. Sweeney. But before we get to those movies, let's talk about the biggest new release of the 4 that we have here, and that is John Carpenter's latest film, Prince of Darkness.
The most sacred place in the darkest of night, the most evil force man has ever known is awakening.
I've got a message for you.
From John Carpenter.
No one out there can help us.
Director of Halloween. Comes Prince of Darkness. He is here. Prince of Darkness.
Coming soon to a theater near you. Consult your local listing.
Yeah, this was the movie that was kind of the beginning of the somewhat downward trend for John Carpenter, because he made a lot of good stuff before this. A lot of different things, like The Thing, Starman. This last movie he did before this was Big Trouble in Little China, which was a criminally underrated movie that has now since become a classic in its own right. But this is one of the first ones where it was really just like, yeah, you could start to feel like John Carpenter was really kind of losing his muster here. And in this film, you follow a group of quantum physics students in Los Angeles who are asked to assist a Catholic priest in investigating an ancient cylinder of liquid discovered in a monastery, which they come to find is a sentient liquid embodiment of the son of Satan. And, good concept overall, good cast overall, Donald Pleasance, Victor Wong, Lisa Blunt, Jameson Parker, but, really, really bad execution. I mean, if you ever watch the Siskel and Ebert reviews for this, and you see some of the clips from there, those clips are a perfect example of what the movie is like. Like, it doesn't know if it wants to be a straight-up comedy, or it doesn't want to take itself seriously, because if it's trying to be serious, it's funny. If it's trying to be a comedy, it's taking itself way too seriously. And that's really the biggest problem with the movie in general, is that it doesn't have an idea of what kind of a tone it wants to set. The visual effects can look pretty good sometimes, but but it does get into very cheap horror movie cliches. And this is one of those John Carpenter movies where it's just like, you can tell that the guy has a lot of range as a director, but this really does feel like a film where he was just kind of half-assing it. This was actually the second part of his Apocalypse trilogy, which begins with The Thing and then ends with In the Mouth of Madness, so I guess it's kind of like a sandwich, except The Thing is probably the best, except the top of the sandwich is the best thing, because it is literally The Thing. But, yeah, other than that, though, this is not one of my favorite John Carpenter movies. In fact, it's definitely one of his lesser movies in general. And I think his first real blunder as a whole, I'm looking at his filmography here, and, yeah, this was definitely one of the lesser films from him in general. And, yeah, the first one that started this trend of lackluster films overall coming after this, but yeah, not a good movie in general. I didn't like it all that much, so yeah, a hard skip on that one. So, with that said, let us go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is Cher and Dennis Quaid starring in the thriller Suspect.
Let the record show that Miss Riley with the Public Defender's Office will represent Mr. Anderson.
Oh, Your Honor, I'm due for a vacation. I haven't had a vacation in a year. Leave me alone. Jury tampering is a felony.
We haven't tampered with me. Yet. A bag lady found this down by the river where Elizabeth was killed.
What are you, a detective now?
The nation's capital, a public defender facing the biggest dilemma of her career.
Miss Riley, have you had contact with a juror on this trial? If I find any evidence of collusion, I'll have you disbarred.
If he did it, I'm gonna vote guilty. But if he's innocent, I don't want that on my conscience.
A juror with information that can help her.
What you're asking me to do is absolutely illegal.
You're gonna let your client just fry because you want to play by the rules?
Or destroy her.
I mean, I thought the whole idea was to find the truth.
Something was in there, and Elizabeth Quinn found it.
What's the connection?
This behavior is bordering on professional misconduct, Miss Riley.
I'm no angel. I'm having a really hard time just, pretending like it's business as usual.
They were brought together by a murder.
But of the murder cases I have prosecuted, this is the most horrible, the most senseless, the most indefensible.
By a mystery.
Did you kill Elizabeth Rose Quinn?
This is a bad place to have enemies.
Who is this? I said, who is this?
By a suspect.
So this is a courtroom drama, if you will. A judge commits suicide, and her secretary is found murdered, and a homeless deaf-mute man, Carl Anderson, played by a very young Liam Neeson, is arrested for his murder. For a murder. Public defender Kathleen, played by Cher, is assigned by the court as his lawyer. She sets to find the real killer and gets help from a congressional advisor, played by Dennis Quaid, who is called to be on the jury panel. Together, they discover a dangerous circle of corruption in high places. So, yeah, it's a courtroom drama, but it's also a crime thriller mixed with a mystery. And, yeah, kind of like with the last movie, Prince of Darkness, it has no idea what kind of tone it wants to set in general. This was an amazing cast, too. I mean, Cher, Dennis Quaid, Liam Neeson, John Mahoney, Joe Mantegna, Philip Bosco, Bill Cobbs. But, yeah, everything is kind of building up to this big finale of who the real killer is. And when you get to that point, it's just like, that's it? I mean, that's really what we're setting up for here. And this isn't written and directed by Hacks either. This is written by Eric Roth, who would go on to write Forrest Gump, and Peter Yates, who's directed a ton of memorable movies from, like stuff like The Dresser, stuff like Eyewitness, Crow, Breaking Away. And this is one of those movies where it's just like, that's it? That's all you're giving us here? And yeah, the movie really does suffer because of it. And like, you want to see what the buildup is going to be. I think everybody in terms of the casting does a pretty good job of what they're trying to do here, but it's the story and the climax that really sets this film back, and it just goes like, okay, we clearly know which direction you're going, and it's just, like, we don't know what direction we don't know what direction you're going in, but this is not the direction I thought you were going to go, and I'm really, really disappointed that you went that way. And yeah, it's one of those movies where it's just like, you expect so much more from it, and it just doesn't deliver, and it's just not a very good movie, man, unfortunately, despite the talent on board here. For Cher, it didn't really hurt her Oscar consideration, because she would later star in Moonstruck, which got her the Academy Award for Best Actress. And I think that's after you get the Oscar nomination. That's when the curse starts to come in. If you star in a bad movie, chances are you ain't winning the Oscar, unless if your name is Hugh Jackman or Anne Hathaway, like back in 2009. But yeah, overall, not a good movie. Skip it. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is The Sicilian.
From the Academy Award-winning director of The Deer Hunter. From the author of The Godfather.
All Sicily loves him.
You have said the word no to Damasino Croce. That means you can no longer live.
The Sicilian. Rated R.
Starts Friday, October 23rd at select theaters.
No, really. They were literally trying to set this up as the next Godfather. I mean, they pretty much literally had everybody from The Godfather, except for Francis Ford Coppola and the cast of that movie on this film. You have Michael Cimino, who was a protege of Francis Ford Coppola, and you have the author of The Godfather, Mario Puzo, along with Gore Vidal writing the script for this. And in the film, you have Christopher Lambert from Highlander as Salvatore Giano, an infamous bandit, together with his ragtag band of guerrillas, attempting to liberate early 1950s Sicily from Italian rule and make it an American state. Giuliano robs from the rich landowners and gives to the peasants, which in turn hail him as the savior. As his popularity grows, so does his ego, and he eventually thinks he's above the power of his backer, Mafio Don Massimo Croce, played by Josh Ackland. Don Croce, in turn, sets out to kill the upstart by convincing his cousin and closest adversary, Gaspar Picciotto, played by John Turturro, to assassinate him. Yeah, they were really literally trying to set this up as the next Godfather. They even gave Mario Puzo $1 million for the film rights to the novel so they can make it. And needless to say, this movie did not become the next Godfather. In fact, far from it. In fact, here's the crazy thing about this. The Sicilian was a flop, but this company that put out the movie had another movie out this year called Mannequin. The comedy which Andrew McCarthy fell in love with a mannequin who turns into Kim Cattrall at night. And that was a comedy that did way better than The Sicilian did. So take that for what you will. It's not because the movie wasn't trying in general. They have a good cast overall here. Lambert, Turturro, Ackland, Terrence Stamp, Richard Bauer. I mean, there's a lot of good talent involved in this movie. But just the fact that it was trying so hard to be the next Godfather. Like, they didn't even try to hide it in any way, shape, or form. And I think that hurts the movie in the long run, when you can't separate yourself and be your own thing. You have to copy from a previous source, and you just do nothing but carbon copy. It's like what happens when a big blockbuster comes out, and then everybody's just like, well, let's get these movies that sort of feel like this movie, or just retreads. Let's make them and just get them out there. Like when Jaws was a hit, everyone was making rip-offs of shark movies that were essentially ripping off Jaws. Back to the Future, there was a lot of rip-offs of that. E.T., a lot of rip-offs of that, so on and so forth. Even in today's world, we have that with a lot of stuff from with a lot of a lot of movies trying to cash in on the success of Barbie coming out pretty soon from last year. But you get the point. This is a movie that was literally trying to copy the Godfather strategy, and it didn't work. It was not a hit when it came out. It's not a movie that really has held up well either. It's a very disappointing film in general. So let's go ahead and move on to our last one we have here, and that is No Man's Land.
Ted Varick. He likes the speed. He likes the danger.
I always steal Porsches.
Charlie Sheen.
Good turn, Bill.
D.B. Sweeney.
I'm gonna partner you with the best guy I got.
You're the expert.
Ted, he's a cop.
Tell me something I don't know.
Crossing the line into No Man's Land.
Showtime, folks.
No Man's Land. Rated R. Now playing at a theater near you.
In this movie, you have a rookie cop played by Charlie Sheen who goes undercover and infiltrates a car theft ring. You also have D.B. Sweeney and Randy Quaid among the cast, but most notably, the writer of this movie and the producer is Dick Wolf, of course, the man who would go on to create the Law & Order franchise. And even though the Law & Order franchise has held its place in history, this film, not so much. Not a very good movie in general, despite the best performances you can get from both Charlie Sheen and D.B. Sweeney and Randy Quaid. And also, the script overall isn't bad in general. It's just very generic, very lackluster. Doesn't really have a whole lot there in terms of a big twist or anything like that. And I don't know. It just didn't work as a whole. Not much more to say about this one. I barely remember it, but from what I remember from watching it, I was not a big fan of it per se. There's a reason why this one doesn't get as much attention nowadays, because it doesn't hold up as much as you think it would. Just, yeah, not a very good film in general, so hard skip on this one, No Man's Land. So yeah, not a very good week for movies this week, but next week we flash back to the 16th of October 1987 with 5 movies, including Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. We also have Weeds, David Mamet's House of Games, Mickey Rourke and Faye Dunaway in Barfly, and John Borman's Hope and Glory. We'll take a look at those movies, see if anything good comes out of those, but we'll see what happens on the next episode. That'll be coming up on next week's show. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the place on the next page, check out the previous episode. Also, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button, because we post videos here every day. So with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.